We have a wild trade idea around Zach LaVine here in just a second. But if you guys want to stay on top of all the latest around Zach LaVine, hit that subscribe button. We're going to be your go-to YouTube channel if LaVine does end up getting traded, which I think he will. So make sure you guys lock us in, hit that sub button, and let's dive in to the latest around Zach LaVine right now. Jeez, how sweet is that new intro video? Shout out our COO, Brett Scott, for that one. But welcome in to the Bulls Report by Chat Sports here. And on today's show, we're going to be diving into the idea of trading Zach LaVine for Zion Williamson. This was actually suggested by a Bulls insider who works for NBC Sports, Joe Cowley. And he said this. Let's just dive right into it. He said, if the Bulls are willing to take a big swing, talking about trading Zach LaVine, he says all eyes should be on New Orleans and the brewing volcano between the Pelicans and forward Zion Williamson. The often injured Williamson told the media he's trying my best to buy in right now, questioning the game plan and how he's being used. And obviously there's a lot of red flags around Zion, but I'd overall take a chance. And that whole quote about him saying it's tough to buy in to the Pelicans right now, and we're probably around 10 games into the NBA season, I think is a huge red flag just around the Pelicans organization that they could be potentially wanting to move off Zion. And overall, the Pelicans do have a pretty solid roster. And maybe they're thinking, hey, let's not full on rebuild. Let's try to retool a little bit and just do a little swap for Zion for LaVine to see what kind of the option would be there. But Zion overall obviously he hasn't lived up to the massive amount of hype he had coming out of Duke. Like, he was supposed to be like the next LeBron. Like, we heard all the craziness and the crazy takes around his name. But listen, when he plays, he is special. But obviously that's the biggest question mark or biggest red flag. How often does he play? But I mean, dating back to that 2020 season, 27 a night, 7 rebounds on 61% from the field. It's just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, there's not many people like him that have ever played in the NBA. We've heard the Charles Barkley comparisons, but I truly believe Zion is one of a kind. But overall, the biggest red flag with him is the missed games, because we understand, like, his combination of kind of size and athleticism, like, you just honestly feel bad for his knees because, listen, over his 4 years in the NBA, he's missed a ton of time, missing over 194 games, missing the whole season back in 2021, and really the only season he was healthy was that 2020-2021 season, and he still even missed 11 games there. Like, maybe it's a change of scenery. Maybe Zion just needs to get into a whole nother organization. Maybe that could fix it a little bit. But this was his biggest red flag coming out of college, was the injuries. Would you want to take a chance on Zion, knowing all the red flags around him? Honestly, knowing maybe a couple of character issues that we saw this offseason with the Mariah Mills whole, debacle that was. But listen, overall, Zion, he's a hell of a basketball player. But would you do it? Would you trade LaVine for Zion Williamson? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. I'll make this the pinned comment on today's video. T for trade, P for pass. If you would trade LaVine for Zion Williamson. I think overall, the Bulls have two choices in terms of where they're going to go with this sort of rebuild right now, because I do fully expect the Bulls to move off the big three of DeMar, Vooch, and LaVine. I think they're all going to be dealt, even a guy like Alex Caruso. And I think they really got two options here. And, these are the options. You can either go, you're going to get a young player plus a lot of picks. Just completely rebuild, say, we are going to be terrible this season. Let's just blow up the whole ship, sell the whole farm, and just get as much draft capital and get some young players we can build around. But then you also got this option. This is kind of the Zion option, where it's like, maybe you retool and add another star player. Like, let's just say the Bulls, honestly, let's just say they're like, hey, we're going to move off Zion or move off LaVine. Let's bring in Zion. Maybe they try to kind of retool the whole situation and say, what if Zion's a better fit around DeMar and around Vooch and Patrick Williams, Kobe White, and they just kind of trying to run it back. The Bulls do have options here. I don't think it's guaranteed that they move off all of the players that have been obviously in the latest, trade rumors. So I don't know what the Bulls are necessarily going to do. I want to go the kind of let's get picks and young players in terms of a rebuild. But, man, if you could somehow get Zion, man, it definitely entices me a little bit. But coming up here in just a second, we're going to go over some Zach LaVine trade destinations, just 5 teams that I think are the most likely to obviously trade for the star guard in Chicago. But I got to give a huge shout out to Prize Picks first. They're today's sponsor of today's edition of the Bulls Report. And if you guys head to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS. You get a first deposit match up to $100. Maybe asking, what is Prize Picks? Well, it's daily fantasy made easy. All you got to do, pick 2 or more players, choose more or less on their projected stat types, and start seeing the cash roll in today. This is the lineup I'm rolling with for tonight's slate, or actually tomorrow's slate on Wednesday. I'm going more on Jason Tatum, 29.5 points, and then I'm also going to go more than 6 3-pointers made between Donovan Mitchell and Damian Lillard in that matchup. You guys can either ride my picks or you guys can fade my picks, but if you guys are going to do that, make sure you do it at Prize Picks. PrizePicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS and get that first deposit match up to $100. Link for that in the description and the comment section of today's video. So in terms of some Zach LaVine trade destinations, I think number one, and I think there's a little bit of a gap between number 1 and number 2. I think it's the Lakers. Like, I think if I had to pick where LaVine ends up, I think it's LA. They obviously need that, scoring guard, in their backcourt. Obviously, they like Austin Reeves. They like what they have over there. They like D'Lo, Gabe Vincent they got in free agency. But if you would add LaVine to Bron to AD, I mean, that would be a hell of a big 3. The Knicks. I think the Knicks have honestly became a little more unlikely since the season has started, because what type of draft kind of a haul, or what type of haul could the Knicks really give up? I don't even know if they would want to give up RJ or quickly straight up for LaVine yet. So, the Knicks are an interesting one. I don't think it's too likely, but I think this one is likely, and that's Miami Heat. The Heat have had such just a good backbone, a good culture over the past couple of seasons, but, what have they been missing? They've been missing that scoring guard to kind of put them over the top, and, LaVine checks a lot of boxes that the Heat need answered, and, they could offer you a package of Tyler Hero in a first, maybe a Jaime Jaquez in a first. They could get creative. I think they would have a more realistic option that the Bulls could be looking for. So in terms of these 3 right here, I think the Lakers and the Heat are the 2 most likely teams by far. A wild card, though. What about the Sacramento Kings? I understand Fox and Monk and Davion Mitchell, they got a ton of guards that they love over there. But what if they're asking themselves, can Fox and Monk kind of get us over the hump? I'd probably say no, and they could be looking at Fox and LaVine. Maybe they could get us over the hump. So the Kings are my wild card. And I wanted to throw the Sixers in here as well. I think they're actually incredibly unlikely with the kind of emergence of Tyrese Maxey. If you guys don't know, Tyrese Maxey has completely made the jump this year to honestly almost being a superstar in the league. He's been absolutely balling out for the Sixers. Love what he's done, love his game, and you just know they're not going to, obviously give up Maxey for LaVine. And I honestly don't even know if they want LaVine. But let's just talk about some Bulls trade pieces to round today's show out. Obviously, we've been spending this whole show talking about LaVine. I think he is the most likely to be dealt from this Bulls team. Again, what type of draft or what type of haul could you get for him? I'm hoping at least a young player and a couple picks, or maybe you get a more proven player and or maybe a pick or 2 as well. But LaVine, probably the most likely to be traded. Number 2 for me, DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan, he's on a 1-year expiring deal with the Bulls. I don't know, honestly, what you could get for DeMar. I would hope a first-round pick. You could probably get a late first-round pick for DeMar DeRozan, but, man, it's really interesting what you could, haul in for him. I'm just not really too sure on that. And in terms of other teams, I think the Mavericks could call for DeMar and try to get him to Dallas. But number 3 for me, it's got to be Vooch. Listen, Vooch is honestly, funny enough, heading into this year, Vooch was one of my more frustrating players to watch on this Bulls roster. I thought Vooch has actually been great this year. He's honestly picked up his game defensively. He's been kind of that, if you need a bucket, give it to him guy on the Bulls this year over LaVine and DeRozan, which is, crazy to think about. But Vooch, maybe a team like the Pacers could be calling for a guy like Vooch to kind of get some more scoring from that front court area from that basketball team. Then number 4, Patrick Williams. He's been terrible this year. I was completely wrong about him. As one of my worst takes I've ever said on YouTube, saying that he is going to take a step up this year. He just hasn't. He has been absolutely terrible. Maybe a team could be trying to take a flyer on him, maybe change the scenery, could help his game out, because I think his time in Chicago is done. This one hurts. Caruso. I absolutely love Caruso, but teams are going to be calling about him. Championship teams, a guy like that. Could you imagine a guy like Caruso in Miami, or a guy like Caruso with the Lakers again? Oh, man, it stinks moving off Caruso, but honestly, Caruso doesn't even deserve to be on this basketball team. It's not fair to him to have him sit around, playing with a bunch of these guys. He deserves to be on a title contender. His game just fits in well. But let me know, are you ready for the full-on rebuild? Y for yes, N for no. I think I think the end is here. I think they're officially going to blow this up. But are you ready for it? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know your thoughts down below. As always, guys, with this rebuild, obviously, coming up here, hit that subscribe button. Lock us in. Any news, rumors, trade rumors around this team, we got you covered. So subscribe, stay in the loop, and we'll see you guys next time. Go Bulls.